Well, hello everybody. Welcome. We're gonna get started in just a minute. See if we get a couple more people joining in before we get going. So I hope that everybody has had a really fantastic week. It's another Wednesday, which means that it's another fantastic Behind the Science, a Wednesday web chat. So I'm Madeline. I'm your host as per usual. I'm from the Outreach and Engagement team here at Harbor Branch. And today our guest is Dr. Annie Page-Karjian. Annie has both a doctorate in veterinary medicine and a Ph.D. in veterinary pathology. She's been at Harbor Branch for 4 years, and she actually works in two roles here. She is both the researcher studying the epidemiology and the ecology of infectious diseases that affect marine mammals and sea turtles. And she's also a veterinarian. She works as the clinical veterinarian for the marine mammal Stranding program. So she's doing a lot of fantastic work here that we'll get to hear more about today. Before we jump into the chat with her, we want to hear your questions as well. So if you do have any questions throughout the chat, please go ahead and ask them. If you're here on Zoom, you can use the Q&A button in the bottom center of your screen. And then of course, if you're watching on Facebook, we want to hear from you guys too. So you can comment your questions and we'll get to those as well. So with that, I guess we'll get into it. Annie, thank you so much for joining us. You should get her video up in just a second here. Perfect.
Hello. Hi.
So I guess the first thing that I'm curious about is if you want to tell us maybe a couple things about you that wouldn't necessarily be on your resume.
Okay, so some things about me. I'm a compassionate, ambitious, strong woman scientist. I'm very passionate about wildlife conservation, especially marine wildlife, but really all wildlife. And also, probably most importantly, I'm the mother of two beautiful little boys, Charlie and Noah. So that's some things. There they are on a boat.
They are adorable. Look at those little smiles. Oh my gosh. How old are they?
5 and 2.
Oh, wow.
There they are.
Cute little family. That's fantastic.
Thanks. It's a lot to hold together, but I'm managing with a lot of great help from my husband and family and friends, and a lot of support at work as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And maybe they'll be inspired to be scientists one day, seeing such a strong role model in you.
Well, that's the plan, but we'll see. We're going to let them make their own decisions.
Yeah. Well, I guess what inspired you when you were a kid that made you think that maybe you wanted to pursue science?
Yeah, so I grew up in Georgia, but we've always come to Florida, to the beach my whole life for vacation. And we have a home, or my family had a home in Florida. And then mainly when I was in high school, I was really fortunate to spend summers at a camp called Sail Caribbean, where you live on a boat and island hop around the Caribbean for the summer. And I did that for 4 summers in a row, and studied marine biology and got to travel and lived with people from all over the world. And that was it for me. I was hooked. I decided, I really wanted to have a job that would take me outside into, beautiful tropical places. I wanted to get paid to be in those places. And then I also really wanted to contribute to the world in a meaningful way, like in a way that was bigger, to contribute to something that was bigger than just myself. And that was important to me. And so it really is what pushed me into marine science, just wanting to be near the ocean.
Yeah. I can't imagine getting to sail around the Caribbean for a whole summer. That sounds beautiful and also really educational, since it was a educational program to get immersed in that. And I've gotten to spend some time in the islands, and they're beautiful, and they're just such a wealth of opportunity to learn and see new things. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. It was really great. I mean, we got to track, you could choose your different tracks. And so one summer I did like the sailing track, and then another summer I did the scuba track, and then another summer I did, or two, twice in a row I chose marine biology. That was really my favorite.
Okay, awesome. So from your summers on the water to being this many degreed researcher, what was that journey sort of like? How many steps did that take?
Yeah, people ask me that question a lot, and really the best answer I can give is that a lot of stick-to-itness. You can't give up. It took me, I was in college for almost 15 years, 14 and a half years of college. Tons of hard work. I put in tens of thousands of hours of volunteer time, traveling, a lot of times to my own personal and financial detriment. I spent a lot of my own money to go to these places. Any opportunity that involved the ocean or marine animals or doing something new, I said yes, even if I didn't know how I was going to make that happen. I also have been so lucky to have the most amazing mentors, people who have been willing to share their knowledge with me and their insight and give me opportunities. I really would not have gotten, where I am now without these incredible mentors. And then, a lot of family support, of course. And then, again, just not giving up, a lot of perseverance, even at times when people in my life would say, okay, it's time to quit school. It's time to get a job. And I said, nope, I'm going to do what I set out to do. And I did it. It took a really long time, but I did it.
I think I saw somewhere that you did like 15 years of education.
Yeah, so almost 14 and a half. And that included 2 undergrad degrees in biology, a DVM, so for veterinary medicine, and then the Ph.D.
That is so much school. Perpetual student. Are you happy to be done with the education and being the educator now?
So I think that the result of that was that I became fully institutionalized. And now, I'm still in school. I'm a professor now, but the roles have switched a little bit, but I'm still learning every day. And I'm really passionate about that and always learning. I'd like to be a lifelong learner.
Mm-hmm. But this time you get to grade the papers instead of writing them. Although I'm sure you write plenty of papers too. So once you got all of those degrees, what was it about Harbor Branch that really drew you to come here and start working in these dual roles?
Yeah, so my job at Harbor Branch was really the opportunity of a lifetime, in my opinion. It offers the chance to do research, clinical medicine, and teaching all in one, which really is what we call the holy grail of vet med. Is to be able to do all 3 is extremely rare. Usually you end up doing, either clinical medicine or research, but for this, this job offered all 3. And so it was just a matter of being the right person in the right place at the right time. And I just feel incredibly lucky to have it. It's the truth.
That's great. Well, and you get to work with all the animals that you're interested in, right? You do a lot of sea turtle research, but you also, with the marine mammal stranding team, get to work with cetaceans as well, right?
Yeah, so that's a good point. That was the other thing about this job, is that it's all the species that I wanted to work with, which was, you know, like, again, I'm passionate about species conservation. So working with endangered species like sea turtles, manatees, and then marine mammals. We do a lot of marine mammal work at Harbor Branch, as most people know. Um, and then also I get to do some fish medicine and work with the aquaculture department at Harbor Branch. And so it's really was great to be able to, you know, work with all the species that I am interested in.
That's awesome. I'm sure it's hard to find that other places, but yeah.
I haven't been able to find it anywhere else. So I'm not that I'm looking.
I don't think we'd let you leave anyway. You do too much good work for us. So yeah, Annie had mentioned all those different programs that we have available. We're doing work on all those different animals in the marine mammal department. Not only do we have the stranding and rescue team that goes out and helps with dolphin and whale entanglements and strandings, treating animals on the spot in the field, and then helping to transport them to other facilities if they need further care. All of that requires having a vet on board who can help out during those different experiences. And so Annie's there for all of them, pretty much always on call, I'm betting.
Yep, always on call, pretty much, more or less.
In addition to the stranding team, we also have a lot of research looking into the health of these animals that I'm sure Annie will talk about a little bit more, but she gets to help out with our epidemiologist taking samples from different animals to help us learn more about them. So can't wait to hear more about that from Annie for sure. Well, I guess the next thing that's on my list is to learn more about some of your experiences before Harbor Branch, or even maybe during your time here. What is the coolest place that you've gotten to travel to for your work?
Okay, well, that's kind of a tough question, just because I've gotten to travel to, I've been so lucky. I've gotten to travel to Australia, Bora Bora, all over Latin America for my work. But I think the most inspirational place that I've been was in 2018. I got to go to Puerto Lopez in Ecuador to spend a week working as a consulting veterinarian with the Marine Wildlife Rehab Center there at Machalilla National Park. And that place, they're rehabilitating stranded sea turtles on literally almost nothing of a budget. They're, you know, using donated, almost everything is donated, including the people's time. It's a staff of incredibly dedicated volunteers. I mean, to the point where, you know, they're filling those tanks with seawater manually every other day to make sure the turtles have clean water. And that just to see these people dedicating themselves to wildlife conservation and rehab, when you know, in a lot of places the human needs are barely met. And so it was really inspirational to me to be able to go there and work with them. And then also, it's one of the most biodiverse places I've ever been. Just in a short week, I saw everything from blue-footed boobies to albatross to frigate birds nesting to humpback whales, 2 different species of sea turtles. It was just incredible, the biodiversity there. And it was really actually unexpected. I went there thinking that I was going to see sea turtles, and I ended up doing some booby rescues, which really like made my life. So at one point I was riding down the beach on a 4-wheeler, and one arm I had a dog, and in the other arm I had an injured blue-footed booby, and I just thought, like, I have arrived. This is what I wanted from my life, you know. And so It was just a great experience.
That sounds like it. And also this picture of the blue-footed boobies lined up on that wall is adorable.
That I didn't know they were rehabbing the boobies there. And when I walked in, that's the first thing I saw. I screamed. They all thought I was crazy because I said, "Oh my God." You know, I'd never even expected. And then they took me to this really amazing island where the boobies are nesting, and there's also nesting albatross, all these incredible nesting birds that we got to see. So it was amazing.
Sounds like it. So you got to see all this biodiversity. Are maybe one of those animals that you saw while you're there, is that the coolest thing you've seen, or is there some other animal that catches your eye?
Okay, so that's an easy question for me because by far the coolest animal that I've ever worked with is the leatherback sea turtle. The first time I ever met a leatherback was in 2003. I'll tell you this story because it got me into vet school. After I graduated undergrad, I went and volunteered with the National Park in Costa Rica in Playa Grande. And the first leatherback I ever saw was this leatherback that was nesting, and she had a terrible fishing line wrapped around her flipper to the point where, you know, it was like cutting her flipper in half. And I said, "We have to help this turtle. We have to do something." And the park guard said, "Oh, there's nothing you can do." And I'm like, you know, screw that. We have to help it. And so I ran down the beach and got a knife and ran all the way back and cut the fishing line off. And they thought, you know, this girl's crazy. And that turtle ended up nesting a bunch more times that year. She laid hundreds of eggs, and they named her Anita, which, you know, is like after me. And it changed my life. Really, I thought, like, this is what I want to do. Leatherbacks, and just that was the first leatherback, but then I've gone on to work with them in a lot of other places, including here in Florida, and they are so inspirational to me. They are superlative in every way. They're bigger, they're, you know, stronger, they migrate farther, they dive deeper, they make these huge bodies just out of eating jellyfish. They're just so beautiful. Their skin, if you've ever seen a leatherback nesting on a dark, starry night, their skin like kind of mirrors the stars in the sky. And they're just, you know, if I ever start to doubt myself or, you know, feel down, I do think about the leatherbacks and what they endure and their beauty. They're living dinosaurs. There's just so many things about them.
I would love to see one day. I kind of want to be on your call list if anything ever happens, so we can come out and see a leatherback in person, because I've seen pictures like that where you're standing next to one and it dwarfs you, and like pictures of these animals digging their nests, and they just are so awe-inspiring, and to actually like see one in person would be amazing. So you got my number.
We'll have to get you out for sure. We'll have to get you out there because they're here right now in Florida. So.
Yeah, they nest a little bit further south than here, near Loggerhead, right? The Loggerhead Marine Life Center.
Yeah, they nest in Martin County and Palm Beach County and further south. And they're actually having a boom year. They're having a really great year. Lots of turtles this year, which is fantastic news.
Yay! Let's keep these animals going. Well, a quick reminder for our audience, if you guys have any questions for Annie, we definitely want to hear them. So if you're on Zoom, use that Q&A button, share your questions. If you're on Facebook, you can comment your questions and we can get to those as well. So think of your best questions for Annie. I'm sure she'll have some pretty fantastic answers. So we're going to get a little bit more into your research projects now. So what is your favorite project that you've gotten to work on so far?
That's a tough question. I've gotten to work on a lot of really great projects, and still am. But I'd say probably my most favorite so far has been a sea turtle health assessment that we're working on down in the Florida Keys. We did it last year, and we're going to do it again this year and hopefully next year too. And it's in collaboration with a group of veterans called Force Blue. It's really, you know, their group is aimed at rehabilitating veterans, special ops veterans, mostly divers, ex-Navy SEALs and things like that, Marines, who have all these amazing skills, but also suffer from PTSD. And so the goal is, you know, rehabilitation through conservation. And they do a lot of coral work, but this was unique in that we partnered with them to do a sea turtle health study where we're just looking at fibropapillomatosis, which is a cancer disease that green turtles and other sea turtle species also get. And we think it probably originated in the Florida Keys. So it's a unique opportunity to go, you know, down to where we, you know, like the place that it started, we think. And we were doing just a health survey, catching turtles. That was also in partnership with my collaborators at In-Water Research Group. But it was really, I guess, it was surprisingly I guess not surprisingly, but inspirational to work with these veterans. One thing that kind of like hit me is that one of them said he spent 18 years swimming, you know, diving for the military, but never once did he see a fish. And that's because he was so focused on doing the job, you know, and so they bring these amazing skill sets, but also like a completely different point of view than the people that I typically work with, which are, you know, conservationists, tree huggers like me. And so it was just like so cool to mesh these two worlds together for a common goal of helping turtles. And I really think it was inspirational for both sides, you know, for everyone involved. It's been really great. And it was supposed to be a one-year thing, but it ended up being so good that we're doing it again this year and hopefully next year.
That sounds amazing. And what a cool opportunity to work with, like you said, that other perspective and also help them along the way. It's really awesome of you. A good project.
Yeah, it's hard to know, you know, who's helping who.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting so much benefit from it.
The perfect symbiotic relationship.
Right.
So another sort of research-focused question then, have you ever had a project where you had some sort of surprising result that led to something really exciting?
Yeah, I would say that the first like actual project where I was the lead was the first chapter of my Ph.D. Project. And in that study, we looked at a bunch of normal or healthy green sea turtles from Puerto Rico and took skin samples from them. So these are turtles that did not have fibropapillomatosis, that cancer I was talking about. So that cancer is associated with a herpes virus. And what we found in the study is that about 26% of the normal healthy green turtles that we sampled had the herpes virus on their skin. And that was really surprising. And it suggests that there are green turtles that are subclinical carriers of this virus. And then which, you know, as everyone has it on their radar now with the coronavirus, subclinical carriers can definitely contribute to perpetuating a virus within a population. And so that was surprising to me, but it was also surprising to the sea turtle community in general. There was quite a bit of pushback, which was also a learning experience for me as a grad student to have to deal with that and defend my work stringently. And now I think, you know, we've kind of shifted the narrative to understand that a lot of healthy turtles can carry this virus as well.
Well, and you've gotten to continue working with that disease since then. You're still doing some work now. I think I was reading, maybe it was that article that was just being shown, but that you're doing work with a couple other groups locally to try and understand if removing those tumors is actually a successful treatment for them, and trying to sort of look at those success rates after removal at different rehab centers throughout the southern United States, southeast, I think. Is that correct?
That's true. So we just did a retrospective case series analysis working with 4 turtle rehab facilities, looking at case progression and outcome, and then also the treatment of choice for this disease is removing the tumors with a laser, which is a nice technique. But we found that about 50% of the turtles that had tumors removed regrew the tumors, because the idea is that even though you're removing the tumors, you're not removing the source of the tumors. Herpes is for life, just like in people. So, you know, the herpes virus is still there and causing the skin to proliferate into these tumors, which is unfortunate. And then we also found a surprisingly high number of turtles with this disease didn't survive rehab. And so it was, you know, kind of not the greatest outcome of a study that I've worked on, but I think gives us some good information for future directions of rehabbing turtles with FP.
Yeah, it'll hopefully have some great impact and maybe be able to mitigate or slow the spread of the disease or find something that we can do to help those turtles out. But on a bigger scale, what would you say the impact of your different research projects has been?
Well, I think that a lot of the animals that I work with are considered sentinels of ocean and coastal health, including sea turtles, marine mammals, dolphins, whales, are considered really good sentinels. They're long-lived. They breathe air, so they operate at the air-water interface, meaning they're subject to being exposed to things in the air and in the water and through the food supply. And they're large-bodied like us. They have complicated life cycles, a lot of them. They require, like, for example, a sea turtle requires multiple healthy ecosystems, or a whale requires multiple healthy ecosystems in order to complete their life cycle. So a healthy nesting beach, healthy coastal foraging areas, healthy migratory pathways in order. So whenever you see, you know, an adult healthy marine megafauna, that means that a lot of things have gone right in order for that animal to exist. And so when those animals die, that's, you know, it's a signal for us that something is breaking down in that chain of events, so they're not able to survive. And so you know, trying to understand what those are, I think, is really important and gives us an indicator of bigger issues that are going on.
Yeah, that's amazing, and definitely very far-reaching impact if it's all of those different levels of the ecosystem. So, well, my last question before we get to the questions from the public, so again, please ask your questions if you have them, is if you hadn't discovered science, what career do you think that you would have gone with?
Okay, so that's kind of a tough question. I think what I would be doing if I wasn't doing this is I think I would like to be a pastry chef or a cake maker. I am a terrible cook, but I love to bake. I like the chemistry part of it. And I think cakes are really cool because they bring people together. It's like people, use a cake to gather together and celebrate something. So, and it's an artistic thing, and that's something that I don't get that much of in my job now. So that's my answer.
Hey, I can't deny someone who wants to bake delicious confections. And actually, I've found that a lot of scientists prefer baking to cooking because it is so exact. It's like doing an experiment because you have exact measurements and you've got a recipe to follow, and you can tweak it to make it better, but you can't just throw things in.
It's true. I mean, and when I teach my students, we do molecular diagnostic stuff in my lab at Harbor Branch, and I always tell them, it's like baking. It's just like baking. You put the ingredients in, and then you cook it, and then you get a result. It's very similar.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get to those public questions now. So last reminder, I know I say it a lot. You guys probably know what to do, but if you've got a question and you're on Zoom, use the Q&A button, bottom center of the screen. If you're on Facebook, comment your questions and we will be able to answer those as well. So the first question that we've got here from the public is from Christina. And she asks, it's a little bit of a long question, and it's actually two questions. So, based on your past experiences and research, have you noticed any geographical trends with sea turtles and FP, which is the abbreviation for anyone who doesn't know for, I probably can't pronounce it correctly.
Fibropapillomatosis.
Fibropapillomatosis, there we go. So any geographical trends?
Yeah, so we notice it mostly in circum-equatorial places. It is associated with warmer waters and also with near-shore waters. So there have been a lot of studies trying to link FP to polluted waters, but right now that's just kind of an association and not a cause and effect that has been able to be pinned down.
Okay, yeah. Actually answered her other half of the question was, do you find that higher water temperatures create higher densities of FP cases?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. Herpes viruses are temperature sensitive and tend to proliferate at warmer temperatures. So yes, we do see it with warmer waters, nearshore waters, which are warmer. And then, but we are seeing it, and with some of my research now, we're kind of tracking it where it's spreading into more northern latitudes, including right now we're working on a study looking at FP in sea turtles in North Carolina. Last year we had a report from the New England Aquarium where it's the northernmost an FP tumor has ever been reported from.
Wow, yeah. There's probably a reason for that. The next question is from Amanda. What can we do if we ever spot a turtle in distress?
Well, so if you're in Florida, if you spot a turtle in distress, you should call Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. They have a hotline, a sea turtle stranding hotline that you can call. And there are first responders, including myself and my team, but regional all over the state who will respond to check it out. We respond to both dead and live stranded sea turtles. If you're not in Florida, check out what your state has. There's usually regional stranding networks just about in every coastal state.
Awesome.
But don't approach the sea turtle or attempt to touch it or move it yourself. They are protected, and you're not really supposed to touch them without a permit.
So yeah, I think that actually sort of answers Another question that we got here from Joanne. I've seen a baby sea turtle hatch. Is it okay to help them make it to the sea? I'm going to guess no, since you just said they're protected.
Yeah, usually they don't need help making it to the sea. You know, a special case would be something like an hatchling that was entangled in, say, a lawn chair or some seaweed. You know, you may unentangle it from that, but that track from the nest to the ocean, we believe is actually very important for the turtle to imprint the location. So they're imprinting in their brain the geographic location where they're born. And so we definitely do not recommend taking a sea turtle from the nest and putting it in the water. They actually need to make the trek themselves.
That's important to know. I guess it makes sense. I hadn't ever thought about it that way. Like, how are they going to find their way back, which is what they do. They nest on the same beach that they hatched at, correct?
Well, usually not the same exact beach, but the same general location. So, you know, there are turtles that nest in Juno Beach. My collaborators there have let me know there are turtles that literally nest within meters of previous nests. So like in 1 year, they'll nest, and then 3 years later, they'll lay a nest 5 meters away from the years before. But then there are other turtles that will nest 1 year on Juno Beach and another year in, you know, in Martin County. And so it's really not the same exact location, but it's the same general area. They are imprinting that location.
So people say elephants never forget. Should it be sea turtles never forget?
I think so.
Okay, I'm gonna go with that from now on. Next question from the public is from Pat. She asks, what's your next big project?
Well, right now we're working on a project which is pretty big, which is just doing health assessments of green, mostly green, but also loggerhead and Kemp's Ridley turtles all over Florida, and tying that into exposure to harmful algal blooms. And so we're looking at sea turtles' health in places like the Indian River Lagoon, the Florida Keys, Lake Worth Lagoon, and up in the Panhandle. So different locations and different bodies of waters that are differentially impacted by human activities. So like in some places it's considered pristine, in other places it's considered heavily urbanized. And then we're evaluating those animals' exposure to harmful algal bloom toxins, and also looking at their health status, looking at the prevalence of FP, and then looking at a lot of other things as well. So a health assessment, which is, you know, I really enjoy doing health assessments. It's something that I find really fun, but there's tons of variables that we look at. We look at all sorts of blood health analytes, body condition, and then there's lots of other little spin-off studies that we have related to this project, including using ultrasound to estimate body condition. I have a grad student working on that, looking at injuries on these animals, and then looking in their blood for exposure to different infectious diseases as well.
Sounds like a lot of really cool work. Got in a lot of different pots there for sure. Our next question is from Miriam. She says, I've stayed at Sanibel Island in the month of May, and the hotel asked that all lights are turned off by 9 p.m. in the balconies and outside lights for the sea turtles. What's the reason for the darkness?
So sea turtles orient, you know, their brains are very, I don't want to say primitive, but they depend on a lot of external cues for their behaviors. And one of the things that they depend on is light as a cue. So sea turtles will orient, like on a natural beach, if the moon is shining down, or even the stars, the lightest part of the scenario is going to be, or the horizon is going to be the wave break, or where the moon is reflecting off of the breaking waves. And so, for example, a sea turtle who is laying a nest and then wants to return to the ocean will orient towards those breaking waves. Same goes for the hatchlings. When they hatch out, they're going to orient towards the lightest part of the beach. And if you have like unnatural lighting, like from a hotel, then the animals will orient towards that. And with it can be disastrous results, like including every year a nesting sea turtle will end up, you know, on the roadway in the Keys. I've heard of sea turtles getting hit by cars, which is a crazy thing to think about. Or the hatchlings, you know, they disorient, and instead of going into the water, they'll go towards the hotel. Hatchlings are only born with their yolk sac as their energy supply, and that's a finite amount of energy for them to metabolize. So they really need it in order to swim to the Gulf Stream and not to crawl around on the beach in circles all night trying to find the waves.
Definitely important for us to help them out in the ways that we can. Next question is from Christina again. She says, any post-grad biology related certifications or specific volunteer areas that you would recommend to someone during this quarantine time? She's trying to make the most of it.
Well, during the quarantine time, there's a lot of stuff. I would recommend doing certifications online. You know, looking into, if you want to work with animals, one good pathway I think is vet tech certification, which I think there are online programs for that. Biosecurity, biosafety certifications, include things like HAZWOPER, and let's see, during the quarantine. I mean, that's kind of a specific question, but I would say just try to get as much training as possible on your resume, so that when the quarantine is lifted, you can switch to more hands-on stuff.
Awesome. Definitely a good thing to keep educating yourself no matter what you're doing, and it's going to help. Last question from the public. We're going to go from Reg. Have you noticed any changes in turtle behavior based on the emptiness of beaches due to the COVID-19 sequestration?
So anecdotally, they're saying, you know, there's been an article that in India, with the empty beaches, there have been thousands of nesting turtles. I know here in Florida, we've had a boom year for leatherbacks. I don't know for sure if that's related to empty beaches or not. It could just be part of other things like weather patterns. But definitely for hatchlings, I think the hatchlings would be positively impacted by empty beaches. One negative thing that we have seen with the quarantine is that a lot of people have been boating more. And so we're seeing more boat-struck sea turtles than usual, because people are, you know, they think, well, I can either stay in my house or go on my boat. And so you can't blame them, but we are seeing a higher number of turtles getting hit by boats. So if you're boating out there, just, you know, please follow the slow wake zone signs and look out for sea turtles at the surface.
Yeah. Keeping an eye out, definitely important. Somebody should be looking. Well, thank you, Annie, so much for taking the time to talk with us today. You had some awesome stories and definitely some really great information to share with the public.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been really fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And then thank you, of course, as always, to our audience for providing the fantastic questions. I was very impressed today with your questions. Definitely come back next week. Our guest is going to be Dr. Tim Moore. Tim works in, what is it? It's remote sensing and optical modeling. So a lot of computer things, but he's using that to study the ecology of phytoplankton, which is actually really important and helpful for understanding the dynamics of harmful algal blooms and coastal ecology and in coastal environments. So definitely zoom in next Wednesday, May 13th at 4 p.m. to hear more from him about his really cool work. Thank you for joining us. I hope you all are staying healthy and have a wonderful evening. Bye.